you know, if you're actually going through the installation process, you obviously just, you know, have to choose your country, and then obviously you know, you choose your Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay, so then once it's connected, in theory, it should just load the interface. So, like I say, you know, this is kind of quite, you know, it's almost the same as the other versions of the box. It might have some additional features that the other ROMs don't have. So you can actually change, you know, certain things. You know, actually, you know, it has the interface where you can actually set up a Samba server, which is actually just Microsoft file sharing from this interface. And, you know, so in theory, you could actually, you know, share files from your computer or watch videos that are stored on your computer rather than, you know, on the box itself. You can choose the launcher that actually is used. You know, they just say it's the home screen, but actually this, you know, the desktop launcher that actually provides the interface for the home screen. That was gonna, you know, you can auto start things, and you know, I also mentioned that you know, you have the functionality of, you know, doing root on here, and like the other box is basically, you know, it's just Super Sue rather than Magix, and so, you know, they both work, and but I assume that, you know, it's just integrates better with Super Sue for them, or, you know, that's just legacy that, you know, they haven't updated anything, you know, to you know, to use Magix, you know, like most of the Android devices actually use nowadays, you know, that are rooted. So I didn't think there was actually other things you could actually do with the interface, you know. So yeah, basically here you can change features, obviously, of the interface, like the display size, the font size. You can even, you know, you can change the animations, and, you know, basically the scaling of them. You know, the color theme. You know, which is, you know, I guess I'm not thinking of what, you know, that might actually be, but, you know, basically the, you know, the bars and stuff like that, in the, you know, in the windows and stuff like that, you know, that would be part of what, you know, the color theme changes. Boot video, you can actually change it to, you know, to something different than you know, what's currently there. Boot animation is, you know, just slightly different. You know, they kind of show, you know, certain parts of the, you know, the boot process, or they show up in certain parts of the boot process, but obviously not simultaneously. And I don't know the order. I can't tell you. I assume the boot video is probably the initial video on startup, and then the boot animation comes later. You can also, you know, change the logo to something different, and then icons in settings, shape icons in launcher. You can actually even change the cursor. And I don't know what the toast frame is, but anyway, it's there. And so, yeah, and then you can also, you know, change the, I suppose we can just easily do that here, just change the, you know, more or less the background wallpaper. And so obviously you have to have super user permissions to actually do that, because it's altering the interface. And so obviously you can see that I actually did change the wallpaper. This one actually has SmartTube installed, which is actually just a enhanced version of YouTube, without all the you can avoid having to watch all the advertisements and stuff like that using it, and you don't actually have to have an account in order to watch YouTube videos. But if you set up an account, obviously you can have a more customized version of YouTube videos. And so then obviously you can the FM play. I don't. It doesn't seem to be it's more European centric radio stations than U.S. But there is some options for U.S. radio stations within it, and then this is just obviously a media player, kind of like VLC, and this is a file manager. And so we can just allow it to access all the files on your system, and so then like I say, basically once you've actually run a video app, there's basically a preview of the videos that you can actually watch from SmartTube. And then if you actually, I don't know if there's any other video apps right now, but when you actually load another video app, I don't know if they, okay, yeah, they don't, it looks like I have to actually install another video app, but the interface just actually shows videos that you can load from that app. And so in theory, after you loaded or started another video app and previewed the videos from that app, then it might show up in place of the SmartTube there, or actually just down below it'll be another column. So anyway, the whole point of this is actually that these small boxes are actually still quite usable and can be usable into the future, but that's only if you actually obviously upgrade the interface or install another ROM, because the ROM that's actually on them, the stock ROM, obviously doesn't work too well. Whereas this one actually even though it's not the newest Android version, it's not that outdated where there's still not a lot of apps that won't run on it. Essentially there's you can actually still download a lot of apps that are in active development, and can be used on Android 9, whereas on the stock version, I mentioned that when I loaded Google Play, there was probably only like 6 or so in apps and in games, because 7 Android or version 7 is kind of just a little bit too old. And so if you still want to get some use out of these old boxes, you actually have to update the ROM, and that's the only way that they'll be that useful. So, and like I say, I guess if okay, this is on the tail end of booting this, this custom ROM. It's Android TV Adian's custom ROM. Like I say, it's Android version 9, which isn't the newest version, but completely acceptable as far as a usable ROM or Android TV device that actually can work again. Basically, so all it's doing is we're rejuvenating the Android box using this ROM so that it actually works again, rather than just being useless. I guess like with the other ROM on it, it's just the other ROM is just too old. So hopefully this will get loaded in a bit here, and then I can just go through the interface real quick. But I guess I should mention that too. On this specific box, obviously there's only 1 gigabyte of memory and 16 gigabytes of RAM storage or eMMC storage. So because it only has limited resources, like I say, 1 gigabyte of memory, it it can cause it to actually load a lot slower. And obviously each subsequent version of Android will take more resources, just like it was a computer. So like I say, basically the boot screen is actually changed now, and you see the screen refresh there. So we're almost to the interface, and I can just go through that real quick. So as it is, this is actually what the interface looks like. And as I already mentioned, this specific version is, I think it was actually released in 2022. So it isn't that old, but the only thing is that if I'm actually going to look under the, let me see here. If I look under the apps or the app drawer, you can see that there's not much there. And that's actually, this is actually all the stuff, the apps that are actually installed on it by default. So, it might be good for, somebody that actually, needs to have something that they want to, put together, with, apps that they, basically just build it customly, custom build it, or, have custom apps on there that, they want, and not what the developer or the designer of the ROM actually wants them to use. So essentially, the majority of these apps are like a part of the Android operating system, except maybe Google Play. You really don't need Google Play to run Android, because you can use other app stores like F-Droid, which is just open source apps, and AppTide, I think it is, which just is another place you can actually download Google apps, so you don't have to use Google Store. But like I say, basically this is just a generic interface without anything really installed on it. So if I actually, just go through the process of setting up your Google account, then you can actually then start, downloading the apps you actually want to use, from Google Play, or if you, know how to side load things. I'm not really going to go into the whole process of side loading things, but in theory, you could actually have a collection of apps that you actually want to install on a Google device, and just on your computer, and then just install them all at once using ADB to connect to the remote box, or the locally connected box. But essentially, that's just another way of installing apps, except that you can actually install 100 apps in a matter of minutes by just having them all available on your computer, and then just installing to the box. But anyway, this is kind of what the interface is looks like, and it isn't going to look that much different in the other ROMs. And the only thing that's really going to be different is that the other ROMs, even though there's an optical audio port on the box, it doesn't actually work. But the other ROMs are actually rooted, so you can actually run apps that need to have a rooted interface, because some apps just require to do that. I can't really give any specific examples of things that need to be run rooted, except there's an app that actually just restarts your Android box into like recovery or bootloader mode, and that requires root to actually do that process. And so that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, but that requires root. And this interface doesn't actually have that, so I could go through a few things in the settings. When I initially started up, actually just asked for your language, and then asked you to connect to Wi-Fi connection, and so I already set that up. And then in theory, if you set up your accounts for mostly Google, but there can be other things that you have accounts for that under this interface. But like I say, this is just for Google, and I'm not going to set up a Google account because I don't think I have to do a video on how to load Google Play and install apps, because it was kind of the same as what you do on an Android phone. And the only way you might not know that is if you don't have a smartphone, or you've always used like an iPhone. So anyway, but I can go through that in another video if I need to. But going back to the apps, and like I mentioned, this is just the app drawer again. And so if I open the app drawer, it's just going to show those few apps that I actually have installed. If you want to see all the apps, that would mean the ones that are in the app drawer plus all the apps that are part of the Android version, would be listed in here. So they're like system apps or whatever. So anyway, that's that. And then I was just going to go through if we want to do if you wanted to basically, there's something that I usually do, or a lot of people that maybe use Android devices will actually do in a lot of cases, which would be to enable ADB debugging. So actually, you would always go down to build, and then since you're using a remote, you just basically click on the remote enough times to actually say that developer, you're now a developer, and development mode is actually enabled. So then you actually have the developer options, and then usually I go to into the developer options and then enable USB debugging, so I can actually remotely access the box from either over the network or over a USB connection. But and there's all kinds of things that actually do that way, like I say, install apps and so forth and so on. But like I say, this is just a bit, a very generic box, and even if I actually show the other ROMs, the only thing I'd actually be able to show you that's different is, it includes more apps, and you have the ability of turning on root for those versions, where this one actually does not have root functionality. But sometimes they create it and don't enable root, because sometimes certain apps might not run if they detect that it's actually the device is actually rooted. They won't run. In theory, that might be why this specific version doesn't offer root functionality, but then it might just be because they haven't implemented it yet. So I don't think I'm going to actually do another video on the other interfaces unless somebody requests it, because like I say, honestly, the other interfaces that use the same Android TV version as this is, and the only thing is really different is that they don't support the enhanced audio. It doesn't work. They don't have root, or they do have root, and then they have a few more apps already installed. So but other than that, basically the interface is exactly the same as this interface, with only minor changes. So essentially, I guess that would be all I have to show for this specific video, and I appreciate you watching it, and hope to see you in the next video. Okay, I was gonna go through this. I actually bought a few of these older Android boxes because I just wanted to see what I could do with them, and they were relatively cheap. I think I only paid maybe no more than $20 for them, but essentially, this is the X96 box, and this is actually what the interface looks like. And I don't know, it isn't really that appealing to me. And the other issue is actually that not much on the interface actually works anymore. I think it basically is Android 7.1, and so there are basically not a lot of software you actually can download and install on it, that is available. So the only way you can actually really use it is to actually update it. And I was going to see if I could actually I don't know, without looking around a bunch here. If I'm going to be able to find something that states, the Android version, but I guess I'll just take my word. This is Android 7.1, And I'm gonna start out with Google Play. I'm probably not gonna go into trying to set it up because it won't work anyway. And I don't, it shouldn't be that there's a network issue. There's a lot more going on than that, so I'm just gonna kind of go through. Let me see here. If I went back to let's go back to settings and take a peek. Maybe the way I'm actually trying to do this, I'm not going to be able to set up the network, but I, should be able to. So there it is. Okay, so when the interface originally came up, obviously, it didn't give me the option to set up the network, so I did it now. So I'm going to go back and see what I can actually do, if anything, in Google Play. Okay, so it's checking info. And I actually obviously had already tested this, and so in theory I can try to see if I can actually set up an account, but I guess I'm not going to go through that process because unfortunately, because of the dating of this, not much is going to work anyway. What happens when you set up Google Play Store is that you're going to get a lot of errors, and there's basically you'll be able to see some apps and games and books and so forth that you can actually download, but it's very few. I think it was only maybe a half a dozen, if even that. So, like I say, I'm not going to actually just go through with that whole process because, this is actually a copy of Kodi. I guess they just renamed it KD Player, and once that actually loads, in theory, it should be able to just download all the updates for it, but even this version of Kodi, I can't remember. I think it's 9 or 8 or something like that. Let's see here. Yeah. I'm not always playing around on these things trying to find the version number, but I think that the newest maybe beta is 12 right now, and I'm not actually even using that myself because it's, like I say, it's still beta, and all the apps and stuff like that are part of it have to be updated. So in theory, that's not going to be done instantaneously. So it doesn't hurt to actually wait a little bit before updating your version of Kodi, unless it actually forces you to do that. So as far as like I say, even doing the updates for this basically is going to have a lot of failures, because the thing is that the repositories that it actually goes to download updates are no longer available and just really out of date, because this version of Kodi is out of date. And so anyway, I guess I'm just gonna shut out of this, but that's kind of the issue. Is basically the whole interface is actually very outdated. Considering everything is installed on Android 7.1, which is you know, kind of quite old in the version of the Android, because I don't know what the newest version of Android is. I don't really pay that much attention, but you know, it could actually be maybe, you know, 12 or 14. I'm not sure, but I guess it's, you know, they're really not important. The whole point is that, you know, actually this is a nice little box, and I can you know, possibly show you pictures of it, you know, the box, but I'm just doing the video right now, obviously, and I could put, you know, the pictures into the screen, but I guess I can, you know, just show them individually later in the video. But essentially the whole point is that you know, the interface on this old box is X96. I don't know. It's X. You know, the Chinese name is X. Me, or, you know, X starts with an X, and I don't even know how to pronounce it, to be honest. But it's, you know, it's kind of one of the oldest boxes that were introduced, and it's basically based on Amlogic chipset. And the nice thing is that even though it's so old and almost unusable, you know, you can resuscitate the box by upgrading the you know, the interface or the ROM on the box, by downloading it from you know, I think there's three sources. You know, they're not all, you know, completely up to date with their ROMs, but, you know, at least the Android version of the ROM is actually Android 9, and I think they're also working on, you know, Android 11. But like with everything, you know, operating system related, you know, computer operating systems and Android and everything else is, you know, in theory, you know, the higher the version of the operating system, the more resource intensive they you know, they become. So essentially, you know, I think that they're sticking at Android version 9 as an update for you know, this X96 boxes, and then introducing Android 11 for, you know, the newer boxes that are, you know, have come out in you know, like 2024. So the only thing is, you know, all I have is actually obviously these boxes, and I just bought them because they're cheap, and you know, they actually still are quite good, you know, as an Android TV box, but only if, you know, if you're able to upgrade the software on them. You know, the other thing that it can actually be used for is if you're into retro gaming. You can actually make retro gaming USB flash drive or micro SD card. It'll actually, you know, run or boot from these little boxes, but you know, you actually have to, you know, insert the media, the flash drive or the micro SD, and then, you know, when you restart it, you actually have to stick something like a toothpick or a small screwdriver, or, you know, paper clip or whatever into the AV port and hold that, you know, in while you plug, you know, the box in, and then essentially what will happen is it'll if the media with the retro gaming software is actually inserted into the external media drive, you know, either the flash drive or the micro SD port, then it'll actually boot from that media, and load a retro gaming system. In this case, what I've actually tried is Beta Sierra, and so basically you can download specific firmware that allows it to function and boot from external media, and so you can actually use it as a if for nothing else, as a retro gaming system. But you have to actually go through that process of putting something into the AV port, and then booting from that external media in order to play the retro games. The box itself is, even the older ones are probably pretty much equivalent to the horsepower, the processing power of a Raspberry Pi 4. So it's kind of like it might be more of a pain in the butt to try to get it started, but it will operate pretty much at the same level as like I say, a Raspberry Pi. And if you look around, you can probably find a box for maybe whatever, $10 or something like that. I don't know. I just know that I didn't spend more than like $20 to buy a couple boxes just to toy around with. So essentially, the whole point is that I wanted to you have to realize that it isn't actually usable. There's nothing usable on the box unless you actually upgrade it. So I'm going to go through that process. Like I say, there's three sources, and they basically all have a version of Google or Android TV that they created something from that's basically, like I say, based on Android 9, and some some of them actually work quite differently than others. One actually is the oldest one, actually. Well, maybe it's not the oldest one, but one of them actually doesn't have any apps installed on it, but the audio or optical audio port actually works. In the other two versions, basically the optical audio port does not work. So basically, the only other thing you really want to have work is, hopefully the Wi-Fi, and sometimes you actually have to find the working version for the box, and there's like 12 different copies of the firmware that have different drivers for them, because there's just that many different devices. And it might also be true that they might not even have some firmware or some ROM that actually works properly with all the hardware on the box that you have. So essentially, this is just the start of this video, and what I'll do next is actually I might try to see if I can actually show how you actually have to do the upgrade date and the software you need to use. But the method you actually have to use would normally be using the stock firmware, would be just to basically put stick a paper clip or whatever into the AV port, and then just plug it into power, and then basically the software you need to use to reflash the box would just be able to do its thing, but it all requires you to actually have, the proper software and a USB, basically, USB cable that's basically male to male, so that you can plug it into the box and then plug it into your computer, and then the software runs on in Windows, and so I can show you the process, but obviously if you don't have all those things, you may not be able to flash the boxes anyway, unless you can actually use the other method, which is actually to burn the firmware to a micro SD card, or maybe a flash drive will also work, and then you can actually boot into, it's the same process. You just basically boot into the bootloader or into recovery, and then it just automatically starts the upgrade process. But that's only if you have like stock firmware, like you see on the screen installed on the box. So essentially, it's kind of long-winded, but I'm going to next go through that update process, and then finally I can maybe show you the interface using one or more of the the update ROMs. They all seem to work on the box. It's just that the only thing I noticed is after they're installed, you actually can't do an upgrade by pressing the button in the AV port and expecting it to load, because it won't work. It won't work anymore after that, and it isn't actually impossible to actually to upgrade it, but it just basically you have to use another method to actually do it. So anyway, this is just the first part of the video, and I'll be back when to kind of just show you how to get everything together and basically update the firmware on the box so that it's actually usable.